All right, I'm sitting here with a good friend of mine, Brian Minbiole, former Callaway rep of Southeast Michigan. You did it forever, but you, while you're retired now from your actual rep days, you kind of got a new, exciting journey, but you're still kind of doing a thing with Callaway, even though you're retired. So we've got a brand new book. It's about Ely Callaway. But before we get into this book, which is actually pretty cool because I didn't realize some of the stuff that was in here. I didn't even know it. Give us a little just background. What's your golf journey? How did you kind of get into golf before we get into the book? Because I think that story is interesting as itself, and then it kind of foreshadows this book as well.
Well, it's great to see you again, buddy.
Always great to see you, sir.
So as a 14-year-old kid in West Bloomfield, my father commanded that I get a job.
Yeah, as fathers do.
And I did not want to bust tables or be a waiter or anything, so I was a little bit spoiled. So grew up in West Bloomfield and rode my bike all the way around Orchard Lake Road up to Sylvan Lake.
Yep.
And there was a Pro Golf there.
I remember Pro Golf.
And I bugged the famous Ron Gallerani for a job. And he let me sell on Saturdays as long as I came in after school 2 days a week and stocked shelves and received merchandise. So through those couple years of high school, I did that. Then the owners of Pro Golf sold the Sylvan store, and they still owned the Royal Oak store.
Yep.
So I transitioned to Royal Oak, and through some trials and tribulations after going through Central and running radio stations for a while, they brought me back and I opened the Pro Golf store in Livonia. And then I ran the Royal Oak store, and then I ran the corporate stores, and then I went and worked at the corporate headquarters and sold franchises for a year.
Yep.
And then a fellow rep in the business said, Callaway's got an opening, to which I responded, so what? The last year that I ran the 4 corporate Pro Golf stores, we did $125 in business with Callaway. One S2H2 graphite shafted driver.
That's it.
So my brother, who you got to meet, did some research on Mr. Callaway and said, everything this man touches turns to gold. You should pursue this opportunity. So I reached out to the sales manager. We had a nice chat. He says, I'm hiring at the PGA show, which I had to tell him that I wouldn't be there because I was running corporate headquarters while the more experienced guys went to the show. I sent him a letter and said, I wish you luck down there, but the best candidate won't be there. And he came back and he said, you're right, nobody blew me away. So we sat down and met. I got offered the job. March 22nd, I was officially hired. On April 1st of 1991 was my first day. They launched the Big Bertha driver while I was convincing Mr. Callaway that he should hire me to be his rep in Detroit. And 32 years to the day, I retired from Callaway Golf, did over $250 million thanks to his equipment, and I am very comfortably retired.
That's awesome. And interesting enough, when you were at Pro Golf, funny enough how everything comes for full circle. I worked for you as a demo day rep for many years. You were kind enough to take a chance on just a strange kid who was unemployed at the time who you met at one of your accounts. But interesting enough, when you were at Pro Golf, you actually worked with one of my neighbors, or my parents' neighbors, the Schlaus.
Oh,
and
Gail Schlau.
Gail Schlau, which is full circle, exactly how that comes around. And then I end up working for you. So yeah, I did a lot of demo day stuff. Brian was kind of instrumental in getting me into the business because yes, I worked at a shop, but I was just kind of there and that was it. And when I got to work with you, that's when I kind of jumped into it. And it was like, that was kind of the ignition of getting me to kind of finally pursue my dream later on and work in the golf business. So one, I very appreciate you taking a chance on a kid who you only knew a little bit, but trusted him with tens of thousands of dollars of demos, sometimes your vehicle,
yes.
And trusted me to go to accounts that had a lot of respect for you because looking back at the time, I don't think I realized it, but looking back on it later on, that was a big thing. And I appreciate you allowing me to be part of your journey as well.
Well, you brought something to my team, and you know, a couple of my teammates that you got to see again today. You had a technical proficiency and an understanding of components that was greater than anybody else on my team. And we had plenty of chats saying, we believe at Callaway, which I believe, the club head drives the golf club.
Yeah.
But the questions everybody has is about the shaft. And to this day, and I say this with complete authenticity, you knew more about the variety and the performance of golf shafts than anybody I ever knew. So you brought a component to my team that allowed us, if somebody had a shaft question, I would suggest to the other guys, don't BS, be willing to say you don't know. But guess what? We've got somebody here who I guarantee you does know. So to round out my squad, you brought credibility to my team. And I couldn't be happier for what you've been able to do with your passion and your knowledge. And obviously, you've got a following that's incomparable. And it's a great opportunity for us to, in our own ways, do something that we care deeply about and find some success doing it.
And before we get into the book, that was one of the funniest things was the first time you asked me about ordering a club, and I gave you the specs of an FT5 driver. It was a 10.5 neutral head with a Diamante Blue Board 73X. And I remember you said, okay, and you walked away. And I remember when I talked to you next, you said, do you know how expensive that driver is? And you were blown away at the time. And I was like, yeah, I knew exactly what it was. So that was, I still remember your expression. Like, what the hell is this? And I was
there was such an aspect as the company bloomed and blossomed, and as we got to be the appreciated brand by better players, not just your weekend warriors, where that player who was willing to spend exceeding amounts of dollars only with the justification and the understanding of what you brought to the table. And graphite shafts are not just graphite shafts, and everybody might have something that's a similar deal, but what does one company do different than the other? And you brought that level of expertise, and I enjoyed competing against the fellow company reps.
Yeah, it was fun.
Because I would gladly take them on one-on-one. But when I went into my the team that I fielded, nobody had anything like you because you were one of a kind and you still are.
Well,
so
I appreciate
we found
that.
a way to make it work.
I did. So, so we've got a brand new book. The Unconquerable Game from Ely Callaway. This is kind of a book that's been in the works for a long time. Interesting. I thought this was just something new. And then after kind of listening to your whole presentation, which was awesome, by the way, learning that there's so much more behind Ely Callaway than just even golf clubs. I mean, the guy, and I didn't even know, the stuff he did before. I knew he was in business before. I had no idea about the vineyard thing. But first off, before we get into that, why did this book take as long as it did? Because you said, this was started back in the 90s that we started he started kind of working on creating something about what he's done in his life. And now we're just getting it in 2025. So what was that kind of timeline from then to now?
What was interesting is, Mr. Callaway starts Callaway Golf when he's 63.
Yeah.
Most people are looking to hang it up. He's got a lot of money in his pocket. He does not need to work, but he's an angsty, excitable fellow. As Callaway Golf turns into the biggest company in the industry, to everyone's surprise, even his, the idea of writing your memoirs while you are still alive, capable of communicating, was important. There were a series of ghostwriters, at least 3, potentially 4, that finally got so frustrated with him because they couldn't pin him down long enough to complete the story.
Always goes.
So, off he goes. We bring in Larry Dorman from the New York Times, who's a very gifted golf writer at one of the largest publications in the world, and he's coming in to finish the book.
Yep.
Larry Dorman is instead put in charge of public relations because Mr. Callaway is doing this with the USGA. And Larry Dorman's a gifted writer and a gifted speaker. And Mr. Callaway viewed his ability to handle the USGA as more important than finishing his memoirs.
Okay.
Mr. Callaway passes away in July of 2001. And there is a whole bunch of incomplete data. A lot of stuff that's been written, especially about his early years. Nicholas Callaway, the youngest of the 3 children, get these boxes and boxes and boxes. And he's slowly collating through them, but he's got a busy life as well. So he starts saying, we need to put this together. I can tell you when I had my first chat with Nicholas, and you'll have an appreciation for this as a kind of a golf scholar, I was doing a club fitting for a young high school player. And for whatever reason, I had my old business card out on the desk. And my most proud business card shows Callaway, Odyssey, Hogan, and Top Flight.
Oh, yeah.
Because we owned them for a short time, and I actually represented Hogan and Top Flight. And my reverence for Ben Hogan is close to what my reverence is for Mr. Callaway. And this young man, who's a fine player, he's going to play collegiate golf at Drexel, says, what's a Hogan?
Oh no.
And it really struck me. And I said, I will answer your question in great detail. Do you know what a Callaway is? Well, yeah, that's the guy that you worked for.
But he didn't know.
So at this point in time, it's going through my head, and I'm thinking, this story needs to be told.
Yep.
Nicholas is inspired to have this story told. And while you and I, as diehard golfers, can appreciate the Callaway golf aspect, which begins in 1982, we can appreciate the Bobby Jones aspect, that they're related, which takes place very early on. But the fact that Mr. Callaway had these different lives of working in textiles to the highest level, starting a vineyard where they didn't think you could grow grapes, and selling that vineyard for $14 million in 1981.
A massive amount of money.
There's all sorts of cash. And then all of a sudden, him stumbling onto these very unique golf clubs that were brand new, but they looked vintage, and seeing a future into that. The beauty of this book is it's an incredible story that I think anybody, you don't have to be a diehard golfer to appreciate it.
Yeah.
But I think, as someone says, you can't throw a dead cat and find a golfer that you're not going to hit that had at least one Callaway club in their lifetime. And I'm very grateful, because I was able to retire before I turned 60, that there was an awful lot of those clubs when I was throwing dead cats around. But his business acumen covered 3 completely unique industries.
Yeah, not related at all.
Yeah, the entrepreneurial ideals took place in 3 different industries. Every product can be made better. Good ethics is good business. Treat your customers with respect and tell the truth. He applied that at Burlington. He applied that at his vineyard. He applied that at Callaway. And one of the things you heard me say today that I think is a very powerful statement, not meant to belittle others, but there is no Mr. Titleist. There is no Mr. TaylorMade. When Mr. Callaway took ownership of 2 companies, first the vineyard and then the golf company, his name was on every single product.
Yep.
Now, I give unbelievable credit, and you heard me speak about this multiple times. I have tremendous respect for Karsten Solheim, but he named his company after the sound his first putter made.
Not his name. Yep.
This isn't Karsten Golf. And while that may sound like it's just a subtle difference, Mr. Callaway's name on every single product meant something. And when he hired me specifically, I saw this man who inspired me and said, I want to represent not only the products that you sell, but the ideals that you have expressed and have built our entire industry around. And yes, I did promise him in my interview that I would only work for one golf company my entire career. And I am grateful and proud to say 32 years to the day, I did exactly that.
And how interesting is that now? I mean, you were hired, like you said, 32, well, for 32 years, been more than that now, but you got to sit down, get hired by Ely Callaway. I mean, that was it. And now, this many years later, there's this book, and it has to kind of rekindle some of those memories of when you first got to meet him and first got to kind of see how he operated. And now that's going to be kind of brought back to life now with this book coming out.
It's amazing. So I think it was November last year that I read in either Golf Magazine or Golf Digest, forgive me for not recalling which one, that there's an excerpt from this book that's supposed to come out in spring. So of course I read the excerpt.
Yeah.
And I want to see if it's authentic. And it's talking about delivering newspapers to every hotel room in Orlando for the PGA show. And the consumer down there doesn't realize this isn't a national ad, it's just a local ad. But there is a newspaper in front of every hotel room door in all of Orlando for the biggest golf show there is.
Yeah.
And you want to know why that's authentic? I delivered the newspapers. So I'm like, this is real.
Yep.
I need to look further into this. I find out that the book's going to come out in spring, and it is Nicholas Callaway doing it. Through a couple mutual friends, I found out he's doing a presentation in Orlando at the PGA show to tout this.
Yep.
So on this dais is Annika Sorenstam and David Ledbetter and Chip Brewer, the current CEO, and Roger Cleveland.
Yeah.
And Nicholas Callaway and I are put on the phone together, and he says, you received endorsements from Roger Cleveland, et cetera. They say the most passionate rep who ever represented my father's company was you.
I got to believe it's true.
I would love to partner with you in Michigan. I don't know how you say no to that.
Can't.
And my favorite part is he goes, I can't pay you like my father did. I said, no one will ever pay me like your father did. I don't need the money, but I certainly want to tell your father's story.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, that's the kind of the cool thing about the book is if you're a hardcore golf equipment guy like I am, there's something in there for you. There's a whole lot in there for you. If you're not, if you're just kind of a business guy, golf historian, whatever. I mean, the story of, Ely Callaway growing up, going to college, wanting to get out of textiles, back in textiles. I mean, it's just so many different paths that he went down and so many different things that you don't just have to be a hardcore golf person to enjoy a lot of what goes on. And it's very cool, like you said, that Nicholas's son, his own blood, I mean, that's can vouch for all this stuff, put it together. And as you said, kind of went through some stuff, found some stuff that wasn't there originally that ended up being added later on because he went through and did the research and found some things that I think even he didn't know. And that's pretty special.
Yeah, Nicholas and I had a discussion. He sent me the book. I read it in about 2 days. And he said, any surprises? I said, oh yeah, there's a good 5 or 6 things that I had no clue about. And he says, all right, if we're going to volley, you need to now tell me things about working for my father that I didn't know.
Yep.
Because there was no nepotism in Mr. Callaway's world because he fought that at Deering Milliken, at Textron, at Burlington. His children had nothing to do with the golf equipment business. So I was able to tell Nicholas specific stories about his dad that helped round out his circle. Reading this book helped me fill out the circle that was his father. And it's a story worth telling. It's an individual worth embracing. And the entrepreneurial spirit crosses all boundaries.
Oh, yeah.
But the best part is his driver kept it between the guardrails.
That's right. His driver inspired a lot of people. And to this day, that name, I mean, even with the brand new 2025, I mean, you look on the bottom of that, and there's a reason why Elite is spelled incorrectly when you look in the dictionary. So,
no doubt about it.
But a very cool book and kind of exciting to see more. So, yeah, thank you so much for giving us all the info, Brian. Always appreciate it. Always love seeing you. And yeah, this is a very, very cool story.
Continued success. I'm glad you're still working in the business and enjoying it.
Yep.
I will live vicariously through you.
Thank you.